Hi there, everyone. Scott and Lars back with another review and analysis for the Apothecaries Season 2, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends.
And we're back talking about, of course, Apothecary Diaries. Frog! Anyway, I couldn't resist.
Yes, the frogs. Remember, everyone, you can win your own specialized frog from Camille, drawn by her own hand, if you can find all the frogs that are hidden in this video. So make sure that you've commented with the correct number of frogs, and if you're the first one to get the correct number, you will have won your very own frog.
They are some really cool looking frogs. But on to the episode. Again, we're having another... I feel like the first episode of the season put a lot of effort into like really showcasing the harem, really showing off like how beautiful it is and like how wide and spacious it is. This one focused more on like the people in the harem, and like they can't go outside of it, so they have to bring in stuff from like the caravan into the middle of the harems for people in the harem, like the concubines and the maids and the servants and the eunuchs, to go and like buy stuff. And like just all of the stuff that's happening there, like it's a power move. I'm getting ahead of myself. We really should talk about like the actual events first.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. This is an episode that is, again, doing a fair bit of heavy lifting for big stuff to come down the road. And while this episode might just have seemed like a shopping episode, especially for those of you who have played Dungeons and Dragons, where either you really love shopping episodes or you really fear and dread shopping episodes, there's more than meets the eye to this one here.
Mm-hmm.
So, quickly diving into the events. The caravan has arrived. This is a caravan from afar, from outside of the empire, as is shown off by the brilliant Crimean and Tartar costumes and displays that we see throughout the caravan, which for a historian like me is super cool. But the most important thing is that as these people have come on into the rear palace, it is right as we learn that there is yet another interesting development within the palace, and that is that it seems as though Lady Li Hao is once again pregnant. So that means that now 2 concubines are pregnant. Woohoo! I mean, that's great for the emperor. Excellent for the baby drama. At the same time, there is a new development, which had already been heralded in the previous episode, about what drama is about to unfold between the concubines, and that is that Lady Gyokuyo, who has now been recognized very much as the emperor's favorite, especially now that Mistress Aodo is out of the palace. Gyokuyo is now the apple of his eye, especially since she's got her little daughter, and this is where Lady Lulan has caused all kinds of potential problems by bringing in a ridiculous number of ladies-in-waiting. I believe in the episode they say that it's 50 women who are now within her palace. So this means that Gyokuyo now needs to bring in more girls to serve her, so that way she can keep up with the Joneses, as it were, keep up with Lulan, because if she's the emperor's favorite, it is an embarrassment for her to not have a larger household. So the caravan is an excellent opportunity to get all of the things necessary to accommodate more ladies in waiting, as well as purdy herself up and keep up with the new trends that are coming in from outside of the imperial palace. So that it kind of sets the stage for everyone going to the bazaar, buying up all of these things. There's a lot of really nice dresses and gowns. There's all of these fantastic teas, fruits, and especially spices for everyone to enjoy. Xiaolin asks Maomao if she can accompany her on the last day when the servants and the lower-ranking eunuchs are allowed to enter the bazaar and buy stuff. Meanwhile, the 4 concubines, their ladies-in-waiting, and some of the more preferred women are able to pick all the best stuff really early on. Maomao does recognize that there seems to be something a little bit strange about the stuff that Gyokuyo has bought, and that it seems as if the style of gowns has been specifically trimmed and designed to accommodate someone who's going to have a growing belly. Which, of course, if you're going to be a woman and you're going to be 6 to 9 months pregnant down the road, you're going to want to have a little bit more room. You don't want to be constrained. But for right now, they need to keep it a secret that Gyokyo is pregnant. And yet somehow the people in this caravan have known to bring maternity clothing. And so they need to now cover up the purchase by buying stuff that a woman who isn't pregnant and who's in peak condition, nice and slim, would wear. And this gets Maomao's gears churning, saying, someone would know something. These caravan people who are coming easily a year ahead of time with everything necessary to bring to the imperial palace because they're traversing Asia, they would not know that someone is pregnant. I mean, someone might guess right, but have all of this very expensive clothing and loads of it ahead of time? No. That would not be something that someone would normally bank on. So it's very curious. And Mama's like, maybe it's just a coinky-dink, whatever. She gets herself some nice jasmine tea when she's out with Xiaolin. They are joined by the purple-haired girl, whose name I will most likely butcher as I say it now, Shusui. Shusui has joined them. Shisui, thank you. Shisui has joined them, asks how the kitty is doing. It seems like it's just some girls out on the town, in town. But once the caravan has left and it's back to work as normal, Maomao realizes that all of the clothes for the concubines is absolutely saturated with spices that are dangerous for unborn children. Not necessarily dangerous for the mother, but could cause all kinds of inner workings suddenly to happen that could affect the fetus and kill it. So Maomao goes on a little fun sniffing adventure, goes to the Crystal Palace where Lady Li Hao is, because that's the last place where a baby unfortunately passed away, and gets reprimanded for sniffing everyone's gowns. So she has to apologize and speak with Jinji about what she has observed. And Jinji's like, wait a second, but we checked the caravan for everything that's dangerous. What's going on? And she has to explain how certain spices and certain incense can be dangerous for babies and for unborn children. And so they need to now do a new sweep of the palace, figure out what's going on, try to help out Lady Gyokyo, who's their main focal point right now. But this is also inadvertently helping Lady Li Hao, or hopefully it will. So the drama is building up as Maomao realizes that once again, things are kind of converging, much like with the assassination attempt on Jinji. All of these coincidences are beginning to overlap. And if so many of them are overlapping, what if it's actually all a plan? And that's where we basically leave off with this episode, is that there could very well be a very crafty attempt at, again, wiping out the Emperor's children, and this time getting them before they are even born, which is crazy because no one should know that two of the concubines are pregnant, and yet somehow someone has figured it out. Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, we're constantly finding out how big the rear palace actually is. Because, like, the first episode this season, like, there's a wooded area behind Lady Gokyo's that has a whole ton of trees. There's a wild cat that somehow got in that's not supposed to be there. You have all these different, like, buildings and areas that, like, we have yet to explore that are going to become more and more important as the story goes. But, like, it's all about, like, power moves. You've got the Emperor at the head, but, like, everybody maneuvering around and below him is like changing everything bit by bit. So you have Lady Lulan, who, like, it's revealed earlier that she's the daughter of the prime minister. Like, she has a lot of power because of that and can bring 50 servants under her to showcase, like, just how powerful she is in this setting. Everybody's maneuvering to, like, influence and change things to, like, influence what's going on in the rear palace from outside of the rear palace. And like you were talking about last episode, it really limits the freedoms of the women in this space, but like the stories about how they like express their own freedom. So like even the lowest of the low, like they can still go shopping at the Caravan at the end of after everything's been bought, but like there's still a lot of this stuff there that like they'd still have access to. They're not going to have access to like the stuff that's gonna make them look more fashionable and catch the attention of the emperor or like anybody else in the palace, but they still have that opportunity.
And just as like a nice little example of that, how Maomao buys those sweet little pink strings for Xiaolin to tie up her hair. It's not much. It definitely isn't much, but it's something that is now personal to Xiaolin. It makes her look a little more cute, and it's a sign of affection from Maomao. This is something that is special. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, and compared to all of the other fancy riches that have been brought in, it's nothing. It's string, but it means something to these girls. And that's something that should not be belittled at all, especially in the world that they are forced to inhabit.
Yeah. Well, and like a big part of this story, like it focuses so much on like the harem ladies and like their interactions, but like we're seeing it through Maomao's view. So she's not going to focus on that kind of stuff. She is, however, going to focus on like the medical like benefits or effects of the stuff around her. So like she starts smelling like everybody's clothes and like face plants herself in the middle of the laundry basket, which I have done before. It's actually very relaxing. Anyway,
it is.
That's not the point, but like she just like face plants in, like trying to figure out is like there's a lot of these scents here, and like the fact that she's able to tell like all those scents mixed together, kind of what they are separated, like is boggling to me. Just because like last weekend I really got into like I got the stuff together to try and make my own cologne, and like when you have so many scents going on at the same time and all mixed together, there's no way to like at least in my mind to figure out just from scent alone what was put into just into one of those colognes kind of idea. And so like the fact that she's able to determine is like, oh, this is like rose and jasmine and like a bunch of these other like herbs and oils and everything. It's impressive. It's really impressive in my mind.
Oh, it is impressive. It goes to show that her father's her adopted father's medical training that he's imparted to her as an apothecary has really paid off.
Well, and like the fact we're able to get this subtle information, because it's like in the first season we had the issue with the lead-based makeups, and like it was something readily available to everybody in the harem, but it was having serious like health, like causing serious health issues over time to especially the like higher place concubines. So like the fact we're having more materials getting into the rear palace that could be used to poison or hurt other people, like it's suspicious. It's really suspicious, and it really points out in this episode is like there's something deeper going on here, and it's subtle. Like it's not like in your face. It's like this is like a creeping poison that's just almost inevitable with how like commonplace it's become.
And just to build on that, because remember, Jinji said like we checked everything, and the nothing dangerous was supposed to have been brought on in. And what this tends to then to indicate is that either there's a traitor within Jinji's inner circle, which is pretty dangerous, or there's someone outside of Jinji's circle who has incredible influence and knowledge to get that under his nose and bring it right on into the rear palace, and to do it in such a brilliant way as well. This caravan is a display of wealth and power, and wealth on the part of the emperor that he can afford to bring in this massive caravan, and that then all of his concubines have access to it. And this is a big deal for them. This is a chance to get new gowns, to show off to others. It's a moment of prestige and pride for the families that they represent. This is a big deal within the courts. It is being used as a subtle knife to them that's being put at all of their throats, proverbially to speak. That in a situation where you would expect spices, which were very important to be imported and exported, that only the most dangerous of spices to unborn children are what have been snuck in vast quantities and have been mixed in with everything. It's like walking into a Michael's store and you expect to get assaulted by that scent of walking into Michael's. And you're like, yes, I smell arts and crafts. And you don't realize that what you might not realize is that what you're actually smelling is a variation of Novocaine. Fun stuff.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's from the cloves.
Oh,
so you're smelling. So when you walk into Michael's or into many arts and crafts stores, you're smelling a blend of cloves, which is, I guess I recognize this because of how many cavities I've had to get worked on, but it is the same stuff. And it's like, and I once talked to a dentist. He's like, "Oh yeah, no, it's the concoction that's sprinkled and sprayed everywhere in Michael's to make it smell the way that they want it to smell is what's also used to numb your teeth." And so again, if you go into a bazaar and you smell all these wonderful things, you expect that, and you don't realize that it could be used for something else, which is why the conversations that Maomao has with Jinji later on become so important surrounding stuff like the jasmine tea. You just come to expect it, and there are good things about it. There's good things about all of these spices, but either taken in too large quantities, like it's just infused everywhere with the women's clothes, or ingested the wrong way, could cause complications, disastrous complications for the pregnancies of these women.
Right. And like, it just amazes me, like, because as an artist, like as an author, the amount of foresight that's being put in at the moment, because like, especially in a mystery story like this, the more information you give your readers ahead of time, like the easier it is for them to figure out what's going on later when we get to the actual mystery. And so right now we're in the setup phase for what's going to happen, and we're given like more and more information to how important the events in the future are going to be, not just with like the spices and the oils and like the medical stuff, but also with like the characters and their relationships with others. Like it's really affecting how like we're able to figure out what's going on. I do have something to add to what you're saying about the caravan, though, is because it's outright stated that the caravans, it's bigger this time that it's coming because there's a special envoy from where the caravans are coming that's going to come in after them, and that's going to be a major part of the upcoming, I think one of the upcoming arcs, because we've got something going on next episode, and I think then we'll get the actual envoy after that. And like it's kind of been teased in like the opening credits of like that envoy. Like if you take a look and you see the two like blonde-haired women, that has to do with that.
Yeah.
So, and it like that envoy, it's like not only showing is like, okay, like look how cool the emperor is, he can bring in this caravan. It's like, but this caravan's even bigger because the envoy, the country that it's being sent from, wants to really show off and create a bond between the two countries. So like there's international importance to what's happening there.
And that, and in many ways, that makes the smuggling in of these spices like even all the more like devious, because the emperor can't say no to this caravan without then insulting people from a country that he has to do business with. This is part of the Silk Road, and the Silk Road, for anyone who's bothered to look into the fantastic and volatile history of the Silk Road, you do not insult nations along the Silk Road, because they will then do everything in their power to punish your civilians and your merchants when they cross through their lands. And that can be disastrous in so many ways. So the emperor has to let this caravan move. And so it makes it like this is even craftier because it's like, haha, the emperor cannot stop what we have in mind.
The like machinations and like the subtle creeping poison that's happening, it just keeps growing and growing, and the tension, like it's not this like heart-stopping thriller tension that you see in a lot of stuff. Like Dawn to Dawn, it had a lot of this just like sudden, like very in your face kind of tension being thrown at you almost constantly in a bunch of different ways. This one, it's like it creeps up under the radar. Like you don't expect that kind of tension. And I love both ways of doing it. Like I love a good in your face thriller, like a lot of action really appeals to me because it's very in your face that way. But like this one, especially like a slow mystery like this, you're getting the information little bit by little bit as you go, and it's very intriguing. It like it's keeping our interest even though the pace is slower.
And in terms of actually like building up the mystery and building up the tension, there's a part of this episode we haven't talked about yet that felt heavy-handed, but I think it was the right kind of heavy-handedness, which is bizarre to hear from writers, because writers are like, oh, you want to be like more subtle, more natural, but every now and then being a little heavy-handed does help. When Maomao has that long inner monologue about the sanitation of the palace.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
how it had how you have the running water, who even brought it in, who brought it in. It's the Dowager Empress who asked for the palace to be refitted with special waterways to help wash out the filth and to keep things nice and clean and flowing for washing, for bathing, for crapping, all of that, which is really, really smart. And we also know it's something from the West. So again, there's going to be some outer ties. And because Maomao's made such a big deal about it, and we were told at one point that there's a big stink somewhere, which might mean that one of the underground waterways has gotten plugged. Yuck. That there's now an opportunity for an outbreak of some sort. And so the thing is that it seems heavy-handed when everything else is like the spices, the reveals, who is sharing information. Then just out of like nowhere, you get smacked with, oh yeah, by the way, the palace's waterworks could end up being a source of major concerns later. I think that this is actually like a good bit of writing.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is, in my opinion, this is the author. The author is showing part of their hand. So whether it's like we're playing poker or you're playing Monster or you're playing Magic the Gathering or whatever, it's like one player showing, I've got this amazing card in my hand, and the other players are like, oh no, and so it gets them thinking one thing, and they don't realize what everything else that's in the hand. A good bluff sometimes requires you to tell the truth. Yeah. And so in this case, the writing is setting us up for some big whammies, and it's trying to divert your attention at the same time, which is something that a good mystery does, where it gives you very credible information. It might even end up being super relevant for another problem, which then causes you to divert your attention away from the other things that the author is creating, rather than feeding you a red herring, which then gets you to mistrust the information that you're getting. Everything is relevant, you just don't know how.
Yeah, a good bit of exposition, like it's, even though you don't know why you're getting that information then, like it's gonna become important later. So like you have to pay attention to it. And so that's, in my mind, like especially the way they did it, because like what, they didn't even take a full minute talking about that. It was like maybe 30-45 seconds kind of idea. Like it's quick, it's digestible, but it's important for later, so we need to put it in there somewhere earlier on in the story somehow.
It's good to have it now, because if you don't put it in now, you then have to slow down the story later to then provide that information. And just to make a comparison, for instance, to something like Frieren, where you're getting constant flashbacks to stuff that happened either with Himmel and his party or earlier between Frieren and Fan, and that story has been designed to accommodate for those quick flashbacks to let you know what's going on, and those flashbacks are kept nice and quick. You can't really do that at this point with the Apothecary Diaries. Like, there are moments where it's like, oh yes, there was that one thing. But those flashbacks and those conversations usually happen in the build-up phase. Because once the ball starts getting rolling, you're in it for the drama. You're in it for the action, for what Maomao is going to discover. And you can't pause that action to give pertinent information that you weren't given previously without it jarring the audience in a certain way. Like, once you're committed to the pacing, you're committed to that pacing. And if you betray that as the author, it's unsettling to the audience. I don't think that it immediately ejects them from the story, but it grates on nerves, and it makes people less excited for what's going to come next.
And then I think the only thing we haven't really talked about is that conversation between Jinshi and Maomao towards the end of the episode, where like they're in the, where are they? They're in the
kitchen.
In the kitchen, yeah, talking about like the jasmine tea. And Maomao makes this goofy little joke about, oh, he's like, you might want to avoid the jasmine tea because it like causes infertility in men, and like she's joking with him, like just because she feels like they have a close enough relationship she can get away with it, but it sours Jinshi's mood a little bit.
Yeah, this is an interesting scene, because I feel like there's several ways that you can interpret how Jinji reacts. Like, it's clear that he's upset. But what he does next when Maomao's back is turned, because he said, oh, I'll drink the jasmine tea. And she's like, well, I'm going to drink that. And he's like, okay, well, then you can pour me another cup using the same leaves. And she's like, it's going to be watery. He's like, oh, that's totally fine. She's like, well, I'm going to get you something more refined, Your Excellency. And that's when she drops the joke. And so when her back is turned, he grabs the jasmine tea, downs it, slams it, and then leaves. And so it's like, okay, then, did Jinji drink the tea because he's being childish and be like, fine, then I'll just take this tea right here. See how you feel, Maomao. Like, I was just going to take the dregs and the watery stuff. But if you're going to act this way, fine. Or is it that he's all like, well, you're a woman who is very capable of having children, as far as he knows. Jasmine tea could be dangerous in large quantities, as already been discussed. You know what? Because I'm interested in you, because I like you, and I feel like this jasmine tea might be dangerous, I'm doing you a favor and drinking the hard stuff before you get to it. Or maybe there's another interpretation to it.
That's the thing with this. Like, you got to be... A lot of good storytelling has a lot of... What's the word? It becomes very ambiguous because it could have multiple meanings. And like, that's something I've learned, like when I was studying like short stories, is that often enough having multiple meanings to what's going on like helps make the story like last longer. It makes it so people actually like think a bit more about what's going on in the story. And Apothecary Diaries does a really good job of making like some of the stuff mean multiple different things, so we're able to like kind of look at it in multiple different lenses until like we're actually able to figure out what's going on as the story progresses.
And this actually reminds me of a conversation that I just recently had about how a lot of people these days have difficulty grasping subtext or dealing with ambiguous and nuanced scenes and interactions between characters. And I even admit in that conversation, that's kind of what's led me in many ways to being maybe more heavy-handed than I should be in describing what my characters are feeling and thinking in any given moment, which readers have said, I want to be mystified. I don't want to be spoon-fed everything. But then there's others who are all like, I don't get it. I don't get what these characters are doing, what they're saying, and because I don't get it, I'm bored. And that puts the author into a difficult situation. What should you do? And I do think And at least I do think, and it's something again that I as an author need to work on, is being a little bit more ambiguous. I think is the better route, because it forces the reader, or in this case the viewer, to actually think about this scene, not just consume it, but to think on it,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it even more worthy of your attention and time.
Yeah, I agree.
So those are all of our thoughts, our review, our analysis of this particular episode. We would like to hear your thoughts, your comments on this particular episode. What did you observe? What did you think is actually going on with Gingy and the jasmine tea? What do you think is actually happening with all of these spices? Who could be responsible for it all? And again, if you wish to earn yourself your own specialized hand-drawn frog from Camille, make sure that you've commented with the correct number of frogs. Be the first one to do so, and you win yourself a frog. But otherwise, if you'd like to support the work that we do here, make sure that you are subscribed to our channel, and please check out the books that we have published. Links for them are in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
Frog.